Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for to let us kind of share your journey through this very historical important time period. Let me start, I mean, since especially you opened with your short comment before the film, that you meant this to show kind of your personal take and your experience with this conflict and Maidan and recent history in Ukraine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your background kind of in two ways. Like, first of all, like how did you self-identify? Like, what did you think of yourself in relations to sort of Ukraine and national identity before the events in Maidan began? I mean, I take it from the film that you are from Zaporizhia, right? You obviously know Russian, Ukrainian, sort of, who were you, right? And then secondly, kind of, where are you now, right? I mean, in the movie you left, I mean, there is clear this tension. I mean, you are here with Stefan, so I don't know if I have to take that he won over the war or Ukraine won over him, or you somehow, like all three of you reconciled, so maybe you can tell us sort of before and after. Thank you.
No, when revolution started, I was a student in my film school, and for me it was important just to film at Maidan and participate to Maidan. I felt even obliged to film as a very important document, and we didn't want at the time to make film. We just think that it's important to film what happened. So before my first education journalist, but after journalist, I decided to become a documentary filmmaker, and because I wanted to discover reality more deeper than like I think documentary films give you possibility to spend more time with your heroes and to look more deeper inside events. Yes, I'm from Eastern Ukraine, so that's why everything what happened after in Donetsk, I felt at that time that it's very close to my territory. So that's why I consider that it's also my war. That's why this film also about this limits between when you consider yourself as a filmmaker and when you consider yourself as a participant, and it's a big dilemma. And I all the time I wanted to be more participant, and of course in film we finished like this because it still was a question, because we didn't know what happened after, and we wanted to leave this question mark at the end. But now everything, we are together with Stefan. We have a baby, 6 months old, with my mother and father in Kiev waiting for us.
Maybe could you tell us more about the way it was filmed? Because sometimes we know that you hold the camera. Sometimes we hear a woman talking to you, and sometimes it's somebody else. So could you just explain how it was made?
Yeah, this film started with two projects, because when I filmed in Donetsk and checkpoint, after I wanted to make film about School of War, and I went to film also Duk right sector with the guys who first time went to the war, and that's why you saw this episode with Wikipedia pages, that it was a big episode at the beginning when they learn how to fight, and before they never see cannon or automat Kalashnikova, and for me it was important to discover this world of volunteers. For me it was very interesting, and my friend Luba, she wanted to make film about me as a participant of the events. And when we came to Andrzej Wajda School, we started to study there, and Polish masters and directors say that we have a unique possibility to make two project, to put the project in one line, and then we will have a very personal story, personal view. That's why you have even different cameras and different view, because I film by myself, and at the beginning I didn't want to make film about myself, and my friend Luba filmed me. So it's mixed, two projects mixed at one time, and that's how the film exists finally.
Thank you for that. Could I ask you a little bit more about your experience with the right sector? So how, first of all, how do you decide to go with them in particular? Was it some sort of group of people you already knew, maybe from Maidan? Like, how does one sort of embed themselves with, volunteer with a group like this? And secondly, when you were filming there, what sort of, we talked about journalistic, freedom and constraints in the war zone. Were you able to film whatever you wanted? Were there some maybe things you were not supposed to film? Maybe you wanted to film and you couldn't. If you could reflect a little bit on that.
I didn't want to go with the right sector. I wanted to go with volunteers, but not especially with right sector. Just because one of my friends say there is a guys go to frontline first time. And for me, it was very interesting that somebody will go for first time, because you can observe guys who first time face to the war and learn how to fight. I even was a little bit afraid at the beginning that I will go with right sector, because I was afraid to see their very radical people. But finally, I didn't see radical people, because it's important to say that right sector as a party and military organization is very different. And people who went to fight with a right sector battalion called Duk. They just it was for them alternative to go to fight, not with Ukrainian army, because Ukrainian army were in very bad state at that time. And that's why for them it was easier way to go to fight, to somehow to help Ukraine. And for me, after I was very surprised by even the people. Were absolutely not radical there. People who fight. And the second question,
how did you know them beforehand? Like, how did you end up going with them? Like, did you present yourself at their office and said I want to come, or what was
I said that I'm student, filmmaker, and at the beginning all the time they said you're a journalist, because they were surprised that what is this girl, why she didn't ask any questions, sitting during 1 month, because journalists usually they came from 1-2 days and they left. And for me it was important to spend as much time as I can there, and I had no any authorization, accreditation, because I was student at that time, and nobody want to take responsibility for me, especially my university. I asked my university, my film school, to send a letter to ministry for accreditation, but they say no, we will not do this. And I went just with the guys, and I received my accreditation when I finished the film. So all the time when I went there, I went there with the guys, with the fighters, with volunteers, and like this. And about when I can about zone, when I can film. Usually, you know where you can film, and when you the zone where you cannot film, because sometimes fighters were very afraid that if somebody will see their position, and I said, but in any case you will see this film in 2 years, so this position will not exist anymore at that time. So
I would like to stay a little bit on the topic of the right sector, which is the nightmarish group as presented by the propaganda, and at the same time you tell us in the film that they have become your second family. Could you tell us a little bit more about who were the people around you, their backgrounds, where they came from, what did you feel about them, maybe some personal stories to make us feel, because I mean in the film we see that they are nice guys, but basically they're all in uniforms and dirty and look a little bit crazy because it's a war situation. So just unpack a little bit that and tell us about these people.
If you remember, one guy will and it's a Jewish guy who fight in right sector, for example, and he just businessman. Just went to fight. Lots of students, some people, even it was one professor from university, and also, for example, one commander, Gatila, from his, he has a free fight school in Ternopil. and there are some very young boys came to fight in Peski from this free fight group. They almost everybody from them are students, and they even it's very funny. One guy called Titushka, and he went from front zone to to pass exam, and after back in few days, so because he had session,
Exams.
exams at that time, and.
But when you're in the airport, it's no more private sector. It's right. It's the regular army unit?
It's mixed, the Red Sector and regular army. At that time, Red Sector did a lot in Donetsk Airport. They fight together with Ukrainian army. So yeah, I went with the Red Sector there, and for me it was important to went with guys whom I followed, because at the time I wanted to make film about this four guys. And I wanted to go with them, but finally they didn't go, and I went with other group. I wait 20 days that commander accept me to go to Donetsk Airport, and it was very complicated for me. They didn't want to let me go there because they didn't want to take responsibility for me, and it was very complicated.
Maybe I'll ask one more question and then we'll open up. One of the most striking things for me in the film was actually when you go to Donetsk before the referendum, right? And then you say how you can't stand that anymore. And then sort of a parallel to that was also the commentary from one of the right sector guys that you were with, how they couldn't believe this could be happening in Ukraine, right? That there is this fighting Russia, sort of fighting in Ukraine. I know you didn't mean it to be like an analytical film, but like what would you say, both your personal opinion and maybe the opinion of these people who are fighting for Ukrainian side of possibility for reconciliation, right? I mean, you see these ladies in Donetsk, and I mean, ladies, sort of putting it mildly. I mean, like, I don't want to say they're not, they are human, but I mean, the behavior, right? Like, they're calling the flag shit, they're like attacking this guy who happens to be local, who wants to protect it. It sort of like strains the mind, like, how do you find some kind of common ground to that, right, with the people like this? But if you don't, then the conflict has no solution, right? Like, what are the possibilities for some sort of reconciliation? Like, how do you see it, if you see them, right? And then also these, guys that you have, who are fighting, who you were filming, who also say, like, we can't believe we are in this situation, and yet we are. Right? Like, how do they see it? Like, what is the way out of it, if they see any?
It's a very complicated question, and in Donetsk Airport, one guy told me, maybe soon all separatists will go to Russia, and we will be happy with all pro-Ukrainians. It's like in an ideal world, but now. I think nobody can see how this conflict can be solved. And I even read today one my friend wrote that what we will do finally with even with 35,000 fighters in Donetsk and Lugansk region, even if we will have Donetsk and Lugansk inside Ukraine, and nobody can answer this question. And I think the same with the guys, and so.
Maybe a last couple of questions. My question is about what you mentioned at the very beginning of our talk, the limit between being an observant and being a combatant yourself. From your point of view, where is the limit for you in the film? And can you identify one, the moment when you stop being just here to film, a filmmaker, and start to be a soldier, or how do you feel it?
No, finally I didn't become a soldier. So like,
but you have a gun, at some point you have a Kalashnikov in your head and you're shooting, right?
Yes, and it was only one time when one guy he incredibly wanted to shoot with me, and like it was. Just training shooting. It was not on the side of separatists, and we decided to put this episode. We doubted about this because we were afraid that it's provoked it's provocative episode, but we wanted to put it because it show how this limit is seen. And like even if it show me from like side, I think lots of journalists will say that I cross this limit. Yes, at some moment I cross this limit all the time. And this film about this, because you cannot be cold when war in your country. And I even didn't say to myself I have to be cold-blooded. No, I didn't want. And this film about this, that you cannot be cold-blooded, and you can behave not in the right way, and not logical. Sometimes it's just feeling, it's just emotions, and for soldiers it's also the same. We watched lots of films about war with pathetic soldiers who make all the time everything everything in the right way, like, oh, we are war, we are fighting here. No, when I came to war zone, it was completely different. Impression. They laughed all the time. They made lots of joke. It was really like family. And I discovered war from also from another I cannot say that it's beauty side of war, but you can see some incredibly human relationship discovers there, because you're between life and death, and everybody can show their inner human how to say nature. Yeah.
And the moments when you look happy in the film are moments when you are with the other soldiers, right?
Yeah. And the world is very easy in a war zone. You have you fight, you talk, you have a very how to say like black and white world there, and like you know exactly what is bad and what is good, and you have this illusion about world, and I don't know how to explain it.
I would like to half open the discussion to the room in asking a question to Stefan, if it's allowed, as well. Lucky to have him in the room. He has a very specific part, right, in your film. Maybe not the most. I mean, it's ambiguous because you're the voice of the reason in the film. You're trying to stop Alisa. You're trying to protect her. What is your vision of the film, the making of this film, but also what happened with her during this all these months?
And how did you convince her to choose you over fighting the right sector?
Because I'm much better than the right sector, obviously. Hello everybody again. No, it was not an easy film for us. I mean, I have also some things to say that Alisa probably wouldn't say, and there is a film, and there is what's beyond the story too. In this film, Alisa is presented also as a film student, but when I met her more than 4 years ago already, she was still at the Karpenko-Kary University, but I knew from the beginning that she was one of the very emerging Ukrainian filmmakers, what she really is now, and it's not because she's my partner in life that I say this, but she's really a fantastic filmmaker, and she was already before the film started. So when she started filming, I had to trust her. I mean, she was not a student. I never considered her to be a student going to film the revolution and the war, and I was a reporter. She was already a documentary maker. She had already one full-length film before, which was great, and I couldn't ban her from going to the war. When the revolution finished, I went to Crimea and I went to Donetsk. I was supposed to stay there 1 week, and I stayed 3 months. Alisa stayed in Kiev, and when I came back for the first time in Kiev, she wanted to come. Who was I to ban her from coming with me? She's an adult person. She's 30 years old now. She's not a child anymore. It's her country. She had very deep feeling about this, and I decided to trust her completely. 100%. But at the same time, I had a very difficult position because I was working as a reporter in Eastern Ukraine. I knew very well what was the situation. I knew what was at stake. I knew the dangers. I knew also the limits that I have to put between my exercise of a journalist and how not to put myself too much in danger. But I also knew very exactly that Alisa wanted to break all those limits. And this was very complicated for me to rule. Because as a journalist, you have to stay alive in order to file your story at the end of the day. If you are a filmmaker, if you want to be a good filmmaker, you have to stay 2 weeks or 1 month with the characters you're following. And I knew that it was really, really dangerous. And in this sense, I considered myself to be a sort of lifeline. Just somebody who is behind your back and taking you by the shoulder, hey, you go too far. And it was a very difficult to find the right limit between giving her freedom, but at the same time trying to protect her because I knew what was at stake. And also very practically, if I'm a little bit pain in the ass with her during the film, it's not because I want to ban her from doing something, but during many times when she was in Pesky, I was in Donetsk. It happened to me that I was from the separatist side in Donetsk and being shelled, and it was maybe those guys who were shelling in my direction. So it was a kind of crazy situation. And I knew very exactly that if the separatists would move to Pesky, there was a real danger for her. Because I knew exactly what was the philosophy, if you can call it a philosophy, about the separatists. If they would find some Russian soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, they would arrest them. If they would find some volunteers, they would kill them. So when I say to her, don't wear a uniform, it's not because I'm crazy about this, it's because I don't want her to hang around in a uniform in case the separatists are attacking. So this was a little bit my position, which was complicated, but at the same time I really want her to give 120% freedom.
Yeah, it made a wonderful film.
There were a few hands there already. Shall we open up?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
We are.
Bogdan Kovalenko, please.
Перше всього, пані Алісо, хочу вас поздоровити за вашу храбрість і за чудове виконання. I want to congratulate you for your courage and for fantastic achievement. The dry economics that I do and the even drier political science that my colleagues do just doesn't hold a candle to telling the story the way you have told the story. This has to continue. Thank you. I have a question that I would like to ask you with apologies. I don't want to put you on the spot because it may be a little bit unfair, but you put a lot of yourself and the people you were with put a lot of themselves into this effort to struggle with a goal and a name. Now, without being too subjective about it, we know that today there's a lot of disappointment in Ukraine as to what has transpired and what has been achieved. The corruption is high as ever. The oligarchic political establishment has not exactly disappeared. How do you and colleagues of yours, and maybe you know what soldiers who have been there today, what do you see of the situation? What do you think of the situation? Are you going to be patient? Are you still patient? Are you hopeful? Are you disappointed? Whatever you feel like saying, please say. I do not want to make it difficult. You've lived through enough.
Yes, it's difficult because of course, a spirit which I had inside me, and also which guys had when they went as volunteers fight, when I follow them, changed. There is no any spirits as it was when it's just started, because it was still spirit from Maidan, and I went to war zone with this spirit of Maidan, and of course now there is no this spirit anymore. No, at war zone it's I know that some places there are high level of degradation of even of soldiers, which I didn't see when I went to the war zone. It's very sad because I think of course people are tired and they don't see a solution, and as I said that even if Donetsk and Lugansk will be inside Ukrainian territory, what we will do with this 35,000-40,000 fighters from Donetsk and Lugansk side, and I don't know. I don't know the answer on this question. But I know that most of the fighters who you saw on the screen, they don't fight anymore. They participated to some more civil activities. Even one of the commander, his fight against corruption in Chernivtsi. But for me, it's even more important now that people understand that we really have also problems which we have to solve inside our country. That it's also important that it's not crazy fighters who just wanted to fight. They just felt that they have to do something, as everybody after Maidan. That's why it was so strong volunteers movement after Maidan. Everybody felt that we have to do something, and that's why all the time I felt myself very weak with my camera, it's just little camera, what I am doing with my little camera, I have to do something more important, and that's why I felt myself like a very, very little person there, and what can I do? I didn't answer, sorry, but
Oh, sorry, I went because she's been waiting. Yes, that lady over there.
My name is Ivana Plahutnyuk. Thank you very much for this beautiful documentary. I'm involved in training Canadian forces that go to Ukraine within the Unifier operation, training them on Ukrainian studies, intercultural awareness, and all of that stuff that is very academic but in a simple language spoken. And at the same time, I'm also organizing the Ukrainian Film Festival in Canada. At some point, I decided to unite these two activities. And at one military bases here in Canada, we screened the Ukrainians, Добровольці Божої Чоти, where one of the persons present in your film was also in that film, and he also traveled with us to that military base. That was a huge success in targeting the audience because the Canadian soldiers said, finally, we know what you Ukrainians need from us. We see how unprofessionally volunteers fight, how they don't know how to tactically move, how to group, how to defend themselves, how to not use technologies on site, and so on, and how they have to be trained, all of this. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the right sector was not supposed to be trained because they were not the part of the Ukrainian forces, and they refused to join. The argument of the right sector, or Andriy, who was present with us, was that the Ukrainian forces are so corrupted that we want to start our own new army, but at the same time they lacked all the capacity for that. They lacked skills for that. So it was kind of a magic circle. My question to you is, also I wanted to say that I also share your feelings of a big desire to defend Ukraine. I was also raised in that spirit, and I went to one of the courses, one of the past summers, to go through the military training. And that was probably the main thing that stopped me from going to join the military battalion, because I understood how the volunteers, or even the Ukrainian forces, lack basic medical knowledge. And for us, it's the most important to win, not just to fight, not just to participate, but to win and to consider our participation strategically. And one of the main components of victory is to save our lives and not to let us be wounded. So my question to you, taking all of this into consideration, is: have you ever questioned the skills of your friends in the front line? Have you ever questioned, or anyone between them questioned the capacity of them to win? And do you think that it has to be questioned, and that the shift from the emotional contribution has to be shifted to the rational contribution and more professional unity? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think yes. At the beginning, they were very unprofessional, but they learn very fast how to use cannon weapons. And I have to say that if you ask any of soldiers from Ukrainian army about Duk, how they fight in Peski in Donetsk Airport, they said that they were the best. Because they really, first of all, it's maybe also because they had a very strong discipline, no alcohol, and they were very motivated to fight, and they learned very fast how to fight, and it's very important. It's even for me like unique how fast they learn this like school of war. Of course, but at the time also Ukrainian army they didn't all be as professional as volunteers also a lot, because I know that there are some soldiers who in Desna train without any bullets. Like they learn Kalashnikov how to собрать и разобрать. Yes, but they didn't like как это выпустили одну пулю, ни одной пули не выпустили на тренинг. Yes, like so at the beginning it was problem as with Ukrainian army, as with volunteers, and later I know there are some groups. Fighters who came to base of in Pokrovsk, and they trained them, and it's a level, of course, increase at the like in 1 year and 2 years. And
Lots of questions. Henry?
Thank you for the film. I'm curious about the title. I assume it's a reference to Alice in Wonderland, and I wonder if there's anything, if it's just a kind of a memorable title, or if you mean to communicate anything with it.
It's because when we had no title, and we were in editing room with my editor, and we watched some like video from war zone, and one soldier told me, "Oh, Lisa, you are like in war zone," and just that's why my editor said, "Oh, we have to use this title as working title." But finally, we didn't find another title. That's why we stay with this, because it was just how to say improvised title. But because we see some video with a soldier say this, like this.
Michael, please.
Thank you so much for this film. I think you really capture this moment in time and in your life so beautifully, and it's such a window into that world. And so my question on the one hand is, what is it like to see it now? Right? It's several years later from this time, and you go so in depth into this time. So what is it like now, from this different point of view, to watch this? And my other question is, in the end of the film, so the narrative of the film is, it is ambiguous what's going to happen, and you are kind of like Alice in Wonderland, stuck in this world of war. So what actually in reality got you out, and when did you stop going to the war zone, and what made you kind of end this film and end that part of your life?
I stopped to go there when guys whom I filmed stop fight, and because last time I went there it was March 2015, and after I worked a lot on editing, so I couldn't go. And after when I finished film, There are no my guys fighted there. I even wanted maybe to go to meet them there, and I didn't want to. Then I decided that it's okay. This finished for me. This I went this way, and this way is finished. You have to stop at some moment. For me, it was very difficult to stop. I have to say that war make you addicted. It's true. It's really true, because when I back to Kiev, I all the time I wanted to go back to war zone. And I even wanted to find something like, oh, I have to go there because of this, because of this. I understood that I just find in my brain some excuse why I have to go there, and. Of course, when I first question, and I think I'm not that Alisa anymore, and I watched today little, not all the film, because some moments it's still painful for me to watch some moments really of the film, and I went out to smoke cigarette because I still cannot watch it, but I think that it was very important experience for me, and painful at the same time, and traumatic, but important, because you go very deep inside yourself, and you understand what is really like human relationship at war, because everything is very different there, and I think it changed me a lot.
Okay, so Ivan, and please the others, keep your hands raised so that we can.
Thank you. Since I research issue of the right sector, in particular in Ukraine, and specific issue of the Maidan massacre, so this is a big elephant in the room, which I think very difficult to discuss and often omitted. And I just had an live interview with Zik television in Lviv, and I was prevented talking about these issues, about my research about the Maidan massacre. So I think this is very important issue about the right sector and Maidan. And so I just wonder why and when Ukrainian television journalists and documentary makers would address the issue of all the evidence, which, according to my study and a lot of other evidence, suggests that the right sector was involved in Maidan massacre of police and protesters. And just recently, on Italian television, you saw there was a documentary broadcast on the main television channel in which three people who say they are Georgian snipers who massacred both Maidan protesters and police. They were ordered. They got weapons from right sector connected sources group, and they also got instruction from a right sector instructor who basically gave them instruction to do a massacre. And this was shown on the main Italian television channel. And also, this is not just Italian television channel. You have Ukrainian official investigation, military prosecutor office in Lviv finding that massacre in Khmelnytsky, in which old woman was killed, was actually a result of killing from Maidan protesters at the time when this was SBU headquarters were attacked by right sector link group. So when these issues would be discussed, when actually do you think it would be possible to talk about this, and when journalists in Ukraine and documentary makers would be able to just address and show all the videos? And I also forgot, this also I found from my research, video of snipers on the roof of right sector at the time when Zhukovska was wounded on Maidan. So this is, again, never broadcast in Ukraine. You have so much evidence, so the question is why and when it would be possible. So this may be a rhetorical question, but this is, I think, a very important question. Thank you.
And Ivan, could you please give the mic to your neighbor as you're there? So the right sector on Maidan, any insights about this?
About that they killed, I don't understand whom right sector give weapons no, but I'm not a journalist. I didn't make research about something. I research people, like human beings there. I didn't care about if it's right sector or not right sector. So I don't know. Even during Maidan, I didn't film right sector.
Maybe Alisa, people in right sector that you were with in the war, were they from right sector group on Maidan or not?
No.
Okay.
Most of them who fight in the Duk battalion, they didn't participate to right sector during Maidan. They just were protest with other people in Sotnya, in different Sotnya. I know lots of people from different Sotnya where they decided to go together to fight because they met at Maidan. So no. So I don't know because people who were in right sector during Maidan, it's not the same people who fight. So I don't know. I cannot make any connections with this. I even know that one commander, Gatilo, he said me that they had a big problem with the people who came to right sector during Maidan because they took everybody. Like, oh yeah, I want to be in right sector. Okay. And after they had lots of crazy people there and they didn't know what to do with these crazy people. Well.
Yes, please.
So I have kind of a technical question, I guess, but it strikes me that this film is really a new media film in many ways. There are kind of layers of new media, and the style at moments feels almost like we're seeing you take a selfie of yourself, and then there are scenes where you show us taking a selfie, right? So I was curious when you decided to create this film in such an intimate style, because it strikes me that aesthetically it's very intimate in the way that the storylines are also very personal and intimate.
I explained a bit before that me and my friend, also a student of my film school, she made already little film about me, and she filmed me because we live in the same students' dorm together. We went to Maidan all the time together, and that's why we had two projects. My project was about School of War, and her project was about me. And finally, we mixed this project, and that's why this way of diary appeared because Luba filmed me very close because she's my very close friend, and I was very open in front of her, and so like this. But in Warzone, it's also soldiers filmed me, and it even was funny because they often ask me to my camera on the okay, now we film you, and it was not that even I asked them to film me. They just took my camera and filmed me, and it was kind of. From my side, it's good because if I film you, you film me, so we are like partners. It's not like I'm hiding in my camera and film. No.
Many people on the list. Oksana and then Volodya.
Thank you. It was very interesting, though controversial for me. I have a question. In the movie, the thing which triggered me the most, there was a comment from you to Stefan, like that you're filming only but what you're shooting only a separatist side. Don't you feel it a kind of controversial to find this comment from you in this movie, because you're also filming only one side? And do you have any reflections on that? I understand that was your idea to make this movie, but how then you can make it as kind of argument against Stefan?
Because I went to other side. I went to Donetsk, and after I was, it was impossible for me to film in Donetsk. I went to this. An eighth floor of Donetsk administration when it was already taken by separatists. I wanted to ask for accreditation, and guy came to me and say honestly, you can be captured here. And that's why I was afraid. I wanted to finally, after Maidan, I went to Donetsk to show another side. And what I could film, it's a little part which you saw in this film. And after my captivity, I couldn't back there, and I couldn't film those sides. I wanted. I even tried to contact some people who can advise me how I can go there, but it was very dangerous for me, and so I could stay in a prison there for years, and I don't know. So I wanted to show the site, and I show even some local people. Like I filmed there in Peski because it was very very few people who stayed there. So it was just my way. It was not that I choose that I will show only this side. It's just how camera bring you to places, and it was impossible to go to separatist side for me at some moment, and even with all my desire to go there.
Thank you. I guess Oksana meant something different, and I'll try to ask probably the same questions in different way. I think that you are trying to humanize the war without actually problematizing the war. And you probably know that there are many similar documentaries made from the other side, by the sympathetic side documentaries to the separatists, to the pro-Russian side, or whatever you may call it, by local journalists, by Russian journalists, even by Western journalists who come to Donbass, and they're expecting to see some Russian professional soldiers or some crazy terrorists like Motorola or Givi or Besen and so on and so forth, and they see the miners, workers. Someone is a Jew, another is a communist, another is a nationalist, another is a Cossack, and it's a huge diversity, and all are ordinary people, and all are involved in a very humane relations between each other, and they show the everyday life and so on and so forth. And the problem is that this is not a deeper look into the war. This is not a problematization of the war. This is not a problematization of what the victory in this war would mean, either for Ukraine or for the separatist side. Now you are saying that you do not know what to do with all those 35,000 separatist fighters. And that means that actually that the military victory of Ukraine in this war would mean a massive political cleansing. And in the movie, you were tired of the war, and probably you are tired now. Do you think that your movie and similar movies, as I explained and made examples, do they really help to stop this war? Do they really help to bring the peace to our country?
But it was not my task. And I'm documentary maker. I'm not journalist. I'm not researcher. It was not my task to show like a problematic, to analyze. Then I had to make this film completely different way. To go to separatist side, I don't know, to make interview, to talk with experts, to researchers, political scientists, and then maybe I could build this absolutely, I don't know, or not absolutely, objective view of this war. But it's impossible. But even when you start to film something, when I start to film this table, it depends how I start to film this table. It's already my point of view. Understand this? I'm not making TV documentary. I'm not saying that it's absolutely true and it's show everything. It show only my point of view. You can disagree with this, as I can disagree with some films from separatist side. So like it's just your
Yes, maybe as a citizen more than as a filmmaker.
My citizen position, what I don't understand.
Maybe I can try to reformulate Volodya's position. This is not only an object of art, even if it is, of course. It's a political film, and you cannot deny it, right? And by doing it, you are expressing something. You're offering a picture. You're also offering a vision of the society and of the war, and maybe of the reasons and possible not of the outcomes of the war, but how this war is shaped and who the fighters are, right? So maybe the question is that in presenting your feeling of people fighting a just war, are you offering something that is helpful as a citizen or not? I don't know.
We just face on fact of war. I don't know what is helpful. Yeah, I don't. I cannot say.
I don't think, can I just jump in on this? I mean, if I understand Volodya correctly, I don't actually think that's a very valid distinction that you're trying to make in this particular question, right? Because if you begin by asking, like, how do you solve this and why don't you address sort of broader causes, right? I think Alisa has an answer that she didn't see that as her, primary task. If you ask, like, what's a citizen position, but isn't that sort of essentially the same question is embedded, right? You want her to say, right, like, what would be the right, just, whatever desirable solution, right? Like, but from what perspective? I mean, I think it's very clear in the film that she, supported Maidan, right? She, supports pro-Ukrainian position in this conflict for whatever it's worth, right? And then she's showing sort of what life is like on that side of the war, right? And somebody did the same for the, from the pro-Russian side. So I guess I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm also misunderstanding your question, but I don't quite get. I think she answers why she's not giving an analytical presentation, sort of the causes of the war broadly and solutions kind of in some, analytical sort of social sciencey way, right? But when then you reframe it as a citizen position, like, what exactly are you trying to get at? Like,
Yeah.
The question to Alisa was precisely about your citizen's position, and I saw some dynamics. And Alisa said that she is not like the same Alisa that was making that movie, and now I see also some doubts in her voice, and that she's not so sure about that war as she was sure when she went to join the right sector. And speaking about objectivity and analysis, okay, the artists, they do the movies, they show their personal positions, they have their right for subjectivity. Art is subjective, okay, but our task as researchers to problematize its subjectivity, and I'm trying to problematize it.
Okay, but when I went to the war, I didn't think that war is a solution. We just face to this and we just react on this. I didn't ask myself, okay, what then we can do if not war at that time? What we can do? It's not. It's about defending. It's not about fighting. I even say that it's not that I support people who go to fight with somebody. I just faced on this fact as other people, and then, okay, you have a war, what you can do? You can sit, you can go to help, you can volunteer, you can provide food, I don't know, you can become medical workers. I don't really understand your question. What you want from me is that I have to say, come to there and make discussion with soldiers, okay, what we can do with this war? Maybe we should shake hands or what? I don't.
Okay, Stefan had a comment on this.
I'm not how to say, как это с миссией, миротворческой миссией поехала туда.
Peacekeeper, I'm not a peacekeeper. Stefan, your comment on this, please.
Yeah, I don't want to rescue Alisa with this question, but I mean, I can comment beside because we've been living as partners, but also as colleagues during all this time. And I consider that not a lot of people had the opportunity to go to the wars and to give a testimony of what was happening there, because it was incredibly dangerous, because there was very low access to the separatist zone, and because Ukrainian journalists could only work from one side. In this sense, I don't consider that filmmakers should take a civic position. I consider that journalist has to do this work. I also felt in the 2-3 last questions something questioning about the fact to follow the right sector, and because they are also maximalist in their way to consider the war. This is true. Following the right sector in this case was not completely a choice, because I remember when I went to Paris, when I arrived to Paris, I knew that Alisa wanted to go back to the front line, and she was supposed to go back to Gorlivka with a colonel of the Ukrainian army. And 5 years later, I received a call on Skype that she was going with the right sector. So everything was also about circumstances. I just want to say that maybe there is no judgment in this film, maybe there is no civic position, but it also helped me as a journalist, being faced to this situation, to have a very deep insight in this situation. As a journalist, I received lots of information on the record, off the record, being faced to this situation, being faced to this film, being faced to an abduction, too. And it helped me greatly to understand what this war was about. During 1.5 years when Alisa was filming this project, I refused to go reporting about the right sector. When she finished the project, I went there. But it also greatly helped me for my reporting to have this film and this experience together.
Okay, thanks. Dear colleagues, we have a lot of questions and 5 minutes left. So I will collect them by blocks of 2. I have Mitch and then Julia, please.
I think I have some easy questions relatively.
Good.
But my question's a little more
technical.
technical questions. I understand that Right Sector also had a number of foreign fighters, and these foreign fighters tended to be separated from the Ukrainian fighters. Did you ever come across them, and did you have any experience with them? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is just on supply. So at this time that you were there, how were they getting their money? How were they getting supplies? How were they getting weapons? Who was paying for it to your best of your knowledge? I understand that later on, there was quite a lot of smuggling that began to operate. So what was the situation when you were there?
You call that an easy question, right?
No,
let's take Julia's questions and then you answer.
Thank you very much for a very interesting film. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the rawness of emotion in it and like the personal touch. It was very moving. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to start with a comment to mainly in the retort to what Stefan just said. That sometimes you just participating in things and this and that. The thing is that whether you want to engage with politics or not, I'm a political economist and I'll say that in that capacity, personal is always political. Whether you choose participate in something or not, whether you choose to withdraw or stand by, is a political act every single time, especially in such cases. But what I wanted to ask Alisa is something else. Is you show the human side of somebody who's living through all of these different challenges and trauma and choices, and there are all of these different aspects of your humanity. You're a human, you're a woman, you're a citizen, you're a filmmaker, you're an artist, and you have all of these excessive things happening very fast to you. And I think it highlights a lot what a lot of people in Ukraine were going through. Of course, your story is very unique, but that brings that to the table, and it's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, what made you said you're not the same Alisa anymore. What made you make that choice? Because at one point you said you were considering becoming a soldier, and you didn't. So why are you not that same Alisa, and what made you make that choice?
Okay, let's start with the easy questions.
About supply, first time when I went to PSK, it was very complicated with the guns, and sometimes three fighters had only one gun. And also there are, it was army in PSK, it was army and Right Sector and Dnipro-1. And for example, army gave lots of shells to Right Sector, and but with the food it's completely different, because at that time it was very complicated with the food. I remember during 1 week we ate only corn of kilki.
Fish.
And
fish conserve.
Yeah, we ate all the time. We even made borscht with this fish, and like it was disgusting, and like so like yes. And after volunteers brought some food, even to Right Sector volunteers, to soldiers too, and all the time it was very good cooperation between Ukrainian army and Right Sector, and they help each other. When the army had some food, they gave food to us, like to Right Sector. If Right Sector had something, they gave. Like it was all the time like in cooperation. It's about supply. And I remember that when we I filmed this when the guys learned how to shoot with a cannon. With a big cannon, they received lots of these big shells from Ukrainian army, and they even didn't know how to use them at the beginning, because and they learned how to do this just with a tree. And to try to попасть.
Okay, foreign fighters.
Yeah.
Foreign fighters.
Foreign fighters. Yes, it was from Canada fighters, and even maybe you saw there's full Canadian flag.
Yes.
Yeah, there are fighters from Canada, from France. Yes, France. And Lithuania, Latvia, Georgia, Armenia. Yeah, I think like this.
Okay. And yeah, I think it would.
And
Julia's question about what made you not the same Alisa anymore, and I think it will be, unfortunately, the final word.
No, but I a little bit I answered this question because it was just after Maidan. We had this feeling of changes, a little bit not romanticization, but we had this like very strong spirit after Maidan and motivation that we can do something, we can change something, and after everything what happened in country, of course I'm not so. I'm more now pessimist. I understand that it will not happen so fast as we thought at that time, and we have to work a lot on a system inside to fight with corruption, to also fight with like our personal mentality. And to like that's mainly because of this I say that I'm not the same Alisa, and I will not make this film in the same way now. For example, now if I go to war, I will make completely different film, not this film, but those film. It was those time. At that time, I was literally born inside myself with emotion, with everything, with hope, with Now it's not the same, and it's not the same with the guys who participate there. We change, everybody changed. You cannot be all the time at this high level of emotions. Then you will die, or you will get crazy with this. That's why.
Maybe.
No, because I edited film. And after I told already that the guys with whom I usually I went to film, they stop, they back home, and just first I didn't go to front zone again, and after I understood that I have to stop because I understood this addiction to war.
And maybe as
it's very dangerous, really. This.
As a final word, what is the project you're working on now? Very shortly, but I think it makes us understand. But it's no more the same, Alisa.
Now I'm working on a film. It's social drama about a young girl who was one of the best football player in Ukraine. And when I started to film her mother died and left siblings, little brother and sister. And so she faced a very hard choice to choose a career of football and to save her family. So I followed her during almost 2 years in this her way to fight, to survive, to save her family, and to build her career in football. So it's a social drama in a very female film. Yeah.
So we wish you a lot of luck in this film.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.